ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिने नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरकृष्णे नमः। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Welcome. So today we are going to start from verse number 58. यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मुङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता। यदा when samharate winds up, cha also, ayam he, urmaha tortoise, angani limbs, iva like, sarvashaha altogether, indriyani senses, indriya arthebhyaha from the sense objects, tasya his, prajna consciousness, pratishtita fixed. Translation: one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, it is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. He is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Thank you. So here this beautiful example that was set by the analogy of tortoise by Sri Bhagavan here in this verse, we see that like the tortoise, as it winds up all the limbs within the shell, Bhagavan says that similarly, who can control the senses from unnecessary running to the objects of senses is the person who is Sthita Prajna. That was Arjuna's question. Who is Sthita Prajna? That is, who is steady in wisdom and situated in a transcendental platform. So that was the question. And in answer to that, Bhagavan is describing in different steps. So we see that most people are slaves to the senses, and they are directed by the dictation of the untrained senses. We see that after getting highest degrees also from reputed universities and working in good position, many people are unable to restrain their senses, and they are completely slaves of their senses. So if it is the case, then everything he has achieved materially is useless. He is still bereft of real knowledge. That is why we see in our Shastras, it is mentioned that Shastrani adhitya api bhavanti murkhaha yahato kriyavan purushaha saha vidvanaha. So it is said that who is never attached to the sense objects is a vidvan, that is a man of knowledge or man of wisdom. On the other hand, after learning all the scriptures also, if a person cannot control his senses, then he is considered as a great fool. So it is said that the senses are like poisonous snakes, and they want to act without restriction. So the Sthita Prajna person is very strong in controlling the senses like an efficient snake charmer. He never allows to act them independently. Very well, but the question is how? That predicting the next question of Arjuna, Bhagavan is answering himself in the next verse, that is verse number 59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drushtva nivartate. Vishayaha, objects of sense enjoyment, vinivartante, are practiced to be refrained from, niraharasya, by negative restrictions, dehinaha, for the embodied, rasavarjam, giving up the taste, rasaha, sense of enjoyment, api, although there is, asya, his, param, far superior things, drushtva, by experiencing, nivartate, he ceases from. Translation. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So the answer Bhagavan gives in this verse, how to control the senses. He says clearly that by experiencing superior things, param drushtva, by experiencing superior things, the senses can be perfectly controlled without any without any problem. So we see that if a person restricts himself from sense enjoyment in fear of rules and regulations of the society or in fear of religious principles, the memory of experiencing the sense objects still remains in the mind. It still remains in the mind. Because we are enjoying the sense objects from many lifetimes. So the images are very strong in our mind. It is very difficult for us to forget. And that is why here Bhagavan says that nirahara, by not enjoying the objects by the senses. So forcefully, if we are refrained from enjoying the sense objects, it may not work. So that is why experiencing superior things is a much better and perfect option. So one who has known the Param Tattva, which means who is a knower of Brahman, that is Brahmajnani, who has seen the Paramatma in the heart, and above all, rendering devotional service to the Lord by all his organs, all attachment and test for the inferior pale material things goes away for him. And it is a very automatic process. So that is the strategy Bhagavan is giving here in this verse to Arjuna and to all of us. So the next verse we see verse number 60. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashchitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. Yatataha, while endeavoring, he certainly, api, in spite of, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Purushasya, of a man, Vipashchitaha, full of discriminating knowledge, Indriyani, the senses, Pramathini, agitating, Haranti, throw, Prasabham, by force, Manaha, the mind. Translation. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So that is why here Bhagavan uses this particular word, pramathini, agitating. The senses are so strong that they are always able to agitate the mind, even of a person who have clear discriminative knowledge. That is a person of wisdom. So as we just discussed that we are obeying the dictatorship of the senses for many, many lifetimes. It is not a matter of one life only. So, and we see that not only we, the common people, but even the greatest of the sages also fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to agitated mind, pramathini. As we see the great sage Vishwamitra, who was a perfect yogi, he was also deluded by Menaka. the dancing girl of heaven, Apsara. So many similar instances also we find in the history of this world. So this great sage Vishwamitra also became a victim of lust. So that is why we see the great Acharya, Sri Yamunacharya says, since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying ever new transcendental humor, rasa, divya rasa. Whenever I think of gross mundane man-woman relationship, I turn my face and spit at the thought. So Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently beautiful thing that material enjoyment becomes distasteful automatically. It is a very automatic process, and that is why it is said that Ashray loya Krishna bhaje, Krishna tare kohuna tyaje, which means Krishna never leaves a person who is worshipping him, taking absolute refuge in Sri Guru and Bhagavan. So we can see this, and it is even more clearly said in the next verse, that is verse number 61. How, the answer that how to control the senses, Bhagavan is continuing in verse number 61. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparah vashehi yasyandriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. Tani, those senses, sarvani, all, samyamya, keeping under control, yuktaha, engaged, asita, should be situated, matparaha, in relationship with me, vashe, in full subjugation, he, certainly, yasya, one whose, indriyani, senses, tasya, his, prajna, consciousness, pratishtita, fixed. Translation: one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So here in this verse we see this particular word matparaha is the most important word. Matparaha means who can fix his consciousness upon me. Upon me means Shri Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Or it means that one who does every work in relationship with me, that is the Supreme Lord. So he is a matparaha. Now, this is the highest perfection of Sthita Prajna. How one can become matparaha is described in the life of Ambarisha Maharaja. We discussed earlier also about Ambarisha Maharaja, right? Can we remember? Yes. So Ambarisha Maharaja, we saw that how he could conquer the great yogi like Durvasa Muni simply because all his limbs were engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. So we see here some beautiful verses from Śrimad Bhagavatam is quoted. It is from Canto 9, Chapter 4, verse number 18, 19 and 20. Sa vai manah Krishna padaravindayor vachamsi vaikuntha gunanuvarnane karau harir mandira marjanadishu shrutim chakarachyuta satkathodaye kundalingālaya darshane drishau tadhritya gatra sparshenga sangamam घ्राणाञ्च तत्पादा सरोजा सौरभे श्रीमत्तुलस्यारसनं तदर्पिते पादौ हरिः क्षित्र पदानुसर्पणे शिरो हृषीकेश पदाभिवन्दने कामं च दास्येन तु कामकामया यथोत्तमश्लोक जनाश्रयारतिः. So this means King Ambarisha fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, that is Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane. His hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord. Karau means hands. Harir Mandira Marjanadishu, in cleansing the temple of the Lord. His ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Shrutim Chakar Achyuta Sat Kathodaya. Achyuta means Shri Krishna. Sat Kathodaya, his beautiful pastimes. So the ear is engaged in that. His eyes in seeing the form of the Lord. Mukundalingalaya Darshana Drishau. His body in touching the body of the devotee. Tat Pritya Gatra Sparshenga Sangamam. And his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Ghranam chatat pada saroja saurabhe. His tongue in tasting the tulasi leaves offered to the Lord. Shrimat tulasya rasanam tad arpite. His legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated. Pada harir kshetra padanu sarpane. Kshetra means dhama. His head in offering obeisances unto the Lord. Shiro Hrishikesha Padabhivandane. And his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Kamam cha dasya natu kama kamaya. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpara Bhakta or devotee. Yathottama shloka janashrayarati. So we see in relation to this verse, Baladeva Vidya Bhushana, he in his commentary on this verse wrote that Madbhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Swatma Drushti Sulabheti Bhavaha. That is, the senses can be completely controlled by the strength of devotional service. As we see, if all the organs are always engaged in the service of the Lord, how can we get the chance? When they are free, they are never free that they can run to the objects of the senses, the material objects of the senses. So how beautifully it is an automatic process that we see in the life of Ambarisha Maharaja. We see some similar verses in Mukundamala Stotram also of K. Kulashekara. So that we see as a blazing fire burns everything in a room. Similarly, Lord Vishnu sitting in the heart of all the living entities burns up all kinds of impurities. The 6 main strong impurities that we all suffer from: Kama, that is lust; Krodha, that is anger; Lobha, that is hankerings; Moha, that is delusion; Mada, false pride; and Matsarya, that is jealousy. So, and we see in Ashtanga Yoga also, in the Patanjali Sutras, it is also prescribed the meditation on Lord Vishnu and not on the void. So, and we see in the pastimes of the Lord also how he removes all these impurities from our heart. In Krishna Lila, we can see, we will discuss in detail some other time. But just as Kama, we see, if we think about Ravana in the Leela of Ramachandra, when Ramachandra killed Ravana, Ravana actually represents this Kama, lust. And Ramachandra killed him. The Lord killed him as Ramachandra. Then we see Krodha. Krodha we see in case of Dantavakra. In Krishna Lila, he was killed by Krishna. Lobha also we see Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna. He was hankering to have more and more food. So he represents Lobha. Then Moha, we see that Hiranyaksha, he was very fond of power and at the same time gold and everything. And Hiranyakashipu also we see he was a victim of false pride. He wanted to be the emperor of this whole creation. And Matsarya, that is jealousy, we see Shishupala. Shishupala represents this. So, and we saw that how Bhagavan in his different incarnations removed all this. So we can guess that if we take complete shelter at his lotus feet and engage all our senses in his service, automatically all our senses will be controlled. All our senses will be controlled, like Ambarisha Maharaja. So with this, we will conclude today's session. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,